Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to give you my review of Solo, a Star Wars story. If you've seen any of my other reviews of Star Wars-y type films, you'll know that I like Star Wars, I'm a fan, but I don't read any of the extended stuff. I only watch the films, I don't watch any of the Clone Wars type stuff, I don't watch any of the animated things, I don't read the comics, don't read the books. If it's not in the films, it doesn't exist for me. I know about certain things in the world, but generally speaking, I only care about if it's in the films. I've liked the last few films. I thought Rogue One was fine. I really liked Force Awakens. I loved bits of Last Jedi. I hated bits of Last Jedi as well. So in hindsight, having seen it a couple more times, I'm a bit on the fence about that one. But I went into Solo, a Star Wars story, knowing a lot about the background, the problems with the directors, with Lord and Miller, bringing in Ron Howard, budget problems, ninth most expensive film ever made at $250 million. It's obviously a plagued film in that sense. There's a lot of problems with the production of this film, but I was kind of hopeful. I don't have anything in me that says Han Solo can only ever be played by Harrison Ford. I don't think roles are sacrosanct in that way. I grew up kind of weirdly watching theatre, and when you watch theatre, the same roles are played over and over again by different people, and people bring different things to it, and you're used to that. I don't care that Harrison Ford was Han Solo. It doesn't matter to me. Alden Ehrenreich, I think, did a good job. So I didn't go in there with any expectations of he had to do a certain thing. He had to do an impression, or he mustn't do an impression. He must be authentic. He must do it himself, or he must try to emulate a Harrison Ford approach. He has to do lots of finger pointing. I didn't have any of those expectations. So I went in, I kind of tried to judge it, or I would view it as being judged based purely on how well I thought the performances were. And with that in mind, I really liked Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. I thought he was good. I thought it was good acting. I liked Chewie in the film. I thought Emilia Clarke was about as wooden as she normally is outside of Game of Thrones. She hasn't impressed me in anything outside of Game of Thrones. The weird one was Donald Glover. I'm a huge Community fan. I love Donald Glover from Community. I don't know his Childish Gambino stuff. I know he is Childish Gambino, but I don't know anything about it. What I did find odd about this is that when they first introduced Donald Glover, I could have sworn they did some kind of voice modulation thing where you actually had Billy Dean Williams' voice being dubbed over Lando or dubbed over Donald Glover, because there were sort of 2 or 3 lines that were, when you first introduced him and you're panning in to see him, where the voice is so Billy Dean Williams, it's such a perfect impression. It was almost like they were trying to do that thing from The Hunt for Red October where the submarine crew are speaking Russian and they zoom in on the mouth and zoom back out again and they're speaking English. It's kind of like they're trying to do that. And that really threw me because the first few sentences I heard were just like, it was Lando's voice, it was Billy Dean Williams' voice. And yet, throughout the rest of the film, I didn't get that at all. I didn't know whether that was something that they'd done just to blend the voices together or to do something to create more of a distinctive introduction that this is Lando. You'll recognise the voice, that's Lando. But for the rest of the film, I thought it was fine. I thought the robot, who I'm never going to remember the robot's name, I thought the robot was okay. I think it was a bit on the nose. It was hammered home, very unsubtle, but fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem. I've watched enough films where machismo is hammered down your throat and, oh, this guy's a big, he's a big tough guy. I've seen enough films and got on with that in my life to be able to see a couple of films where a sort of feminist equality type agenda is fairly heavy-handedly applied. It was okay. It was fine. I think coming from a robot, maybe it's more excusable because a droid, you could always put it down to some form of programming. It's sort of always been wedged in there because C-3PO is always generally a dick. Always is. He's the same thing all the time. Same thing, always. And so I didn't find that a problem that this character had this like one note approach, that everything was about this one aspect. That made sense. If it was a human character doing that, then it's lacking nuance, but a robot, I guess you can get away with it. So actors liked it. I quite liked the story. I thought Woody Harrelson was good in the film. I think some things were fairly obvious. The sort of story itself, I was actually quite surprised at how shallow it was. They clearly have left this whole gap in Han Solo's life from the end of this film before the start of episode 4. There's a whole gap in his life, which is a whole chunk of stuff. There are characters we didn't see in the film that were, I think, very much expected. Or you could have expected Disney to just try and force everything into this one film, which screams they were thinking sequel. I'm not sure it's going to happen. And for me, that was the problem with this film, is that I was expecting to see Han go from wherever they started him to scoundrel anti-hero by the end of the film. Someone who needs turning again, who needs to be reminded of what it takes to be good. And he doesn't go through that arc because they miss out this whole chunk in the middle where he's doing, I guess, most of his smuggling. It's really just the first job that they're concentrating on with this film. And all of those years of smuggling and getting into debt and whatever else, and the problems he had prior to A New Hope, the things that were sort of haunting him, none of that was covered. So as an arc for Han, you were kind of, let's say he had this kind of upbeat, against all odds type upbringing, escaping from quite horrible circumstances. But he never descended to the level of being the rogue. They did a couple of things, like shooting first. A few things that were nice, that were little nudges or hints, but nothing that showed what I guess would be a relatively dark period in his life. So maybe that's the Disney influence. This film could have done with being a lot darker, with having a lot more grit in it and portraying the smuggling underworld with a little bit less of a wink and a nudge and a don't trust anyone type thing, with a bit more seriousness, similar to what they did with Rogue One. And given Rogue One was pretty bleak in places. Given the success of that film, I'm surprised they didn't feel the need to do this. But it seems like they were keeping that for the middle film. Star Wars has this tradition of the middle film being the dark, depressing one. And maybe that's what they're playing for Han Solo. And maybe we're not going to get to see that now. All in all, I thought the film was... I give it a 6 out of 10. It's fine. I was entertained. I enjoyed it. I liked a lot of bits of the film. There are some things that seem to have annoyed certain people that I really didn't care about. I don't care about how he met Chewie. I really don't care about how he got his name. In fact, I like that. No spoilers, but the idea of where the name of Solo comes from, the fact that Han gets his name in that way in the film, for me is very interesting, because there are people in the world, past and present, who get their names that way. And it's something we take for granted a little bit. But some people in the world still get their names that way. And lots of families have gained their names, particularly families of certain types, have gained their names in that way. They've been given, that's how they've got that name. And I thought that was interesting. It was probably not what a lot of people were expecting, but I liked it. I thought it was fine. The acting in the scene was pretty awful. So they could have done a much better job actually representing that. Much better job. But how the name came to be, fine for me. Absolutely fine. Anyway, have you seen the film? What do you think about it? Interested in more Star Wars films? I'm looking forward to episode 9. Beyond this, I don't care about an Obi-Wan film. I don't care about a Boba Fett film. I don't care about whatever the hell they're going to do with the surprise character that turns up in this film. I don't care about that. To me, that character shouldn't have been in the film because I only watch the films. I don't watch any of the extended stuff. I don't watch cartoons. So for me, that was incongruous and slightly weird. But there we go. And yeah, I don't know what I want next. I do know that what I want from Star Wars next, and maybe this is what they're going to be doing with Benioff and Weiss, maybe it's what they're going to be doing with Rian Johnson if they go forward with his own trilogy, is something that doesn't have any characters in it that I know. Not one. No droids, no people. So go back hundreds of years and show something totally different. Maybe it's Knights of the Old Republic. I do play the games. Maybe it's Knights of the Old Republic. Fine. And don't tie it in with EA. Don't tie it in with a bloody EA game. That's the one thing I don't want. I love PS4 games. I love my games. I refuse to buy Battlefront. I refuse to buy Battlefront 2. I won't spend money on Star Wars games as long as EA keep producing this drivel. So something that is universe building, truly standalone in the Star Wars universe and not connected by any characters, any ships, any designs, any outfits. So I don't want to see any characters, I don't want to see any stormtroopers, I don't want to see familiar shaped ships, I don't want to see frankly a film with no lightsabers. Again, that would be great. Another film with no lightsabers. That's what I kind of want to see from Star Wars next. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the film. Did you enjoy it? Did you feel similar to me, or did you hate it, love it, whatever? Feel free to like, share and subscribe. Hit the little bell thing just to stay updated with new videos that I'm releasing. You can find me on my website, which is www.julietnoir.uk, or through my email address. You can send me any questions, which is at julietteisnoir@gmail.com. Thanks for watching me as always, and as ever, bye! Bye!